Hey, welcome to. I'm now actually in week 5 of my Camino journey. Here's day 29, and I made it to Sarria yesterday. And so here I am today in Sarria. It was a very interesting sort of arrival because people had warned me, some couple of guys who had gone ahead of me, and I'd stay in touch with them. One guy in particular, he's like, yeah, it gets crowded. Just you wait and see. Sarria, here comes everybody, right? About half of the people who walk the Camino are not beginning back in Saint Jean Pied de Port, which is that sort of 500-mile journey, but instead are walking about a 70-mile journey beginning in Sarria. And it's not like, oh, we're special because we did the whole thing, but rather a lot of the folks just don't have the time. That's probably the biggest factor, is to be able to access the more extended Camino. You're going to need probably a minimum of a month. And let's just say for the ordinary person, it's going to be 35 to 40 days or longer. And that was a very common thing. And so really to be able to access this opportunity, like the Lord opened to me, I needed to have the time and commit to the time. And so all of a sudden now I'm bumping into folks who have a tinier window, or who have just made the choice that this is the fitting Camino for them. And it was so interesting because I would see in this bigger city, Sarria, compared to a lot of the other small towns, so many pilgrims who are starting in Sarria, and you could tell because all their clothes were in nice, clean, condition. Their backpacks were all nice and clean and new, and their hiking poles had the rubber tips still in place on the bottom, and their shoes were nice and it was so interesting to see. It's like, oh, you're new, you're new, you're new. Oh, there's another guy like me. You've been at this for a while, and so that was kind of a fun distinction of the ragtag, weary band of folks like me who had started, 400 miles earlier, are stumbling into town and bumping up against a whole bunch of people who are super excited to be there, and just getting launched. Well, one of the things that happened uh, in my discernment, I had shared with you previously that I had initially intended to and mapped out a 40-day period from departure to arrival back home. And that made my Camino 34 days, with a couple of days for travel on each side. And if needed, like basically one day, maybe 2 days of buffer in case something went wrong. And I just had to, like, I rest because I was sick or injured or something. And you remember that I ended up saying I can walk faster, or I will walk faster, or it's really not faster, but longer. I'll walk longer days to be able to build in some rest days, and ended up doing that sufficiently to be able to cut back from the 40 days down to 36 days. So ended up saying, okay, I got this. I'm going to make it home. Instead of October 4th, I'm going to arrive on October 1st. So let's see, 3, 2, 1. So 3 days. So yeah, from 40 to 37 days. Well, uh, yesterday I made another decision, and that decision was, I can do this faster. I can, instead of arriving home on Tuesday on day 37, I'm going to arrive home on day 34. I'm going to make it back on Saturday. And the question was, could I do it? Could I actually do this new advancing of my days forward, right? And to go from the 1st back to the 28th. Let me arrive home on Saturday the 28th. Well, to do that meant that I had to arrive in Santiago de Compostela on the 27th, on Friday the 27th. And to be able to do that, that meant I was going to complete the Camino in 31 days. And completing the Camino in 31 days, with those other 3 days of rest that I had taken, meant that I was going to be walking from Sarria to Santiago, which is a 5-stage process. So essentially 5 days. I was going to do it in just over 2 days. And yeah, let me say that again. Can I do this? Can I actually walk from Sarria to Santiago, which is about 73 miles, 74 miles? Can I do it in just over 2 days? Well, in order to do that, I had to map it all out. And what that meant was walking on this day from Sarria to Palas de Rei, which would have been typically a 2-day walk, 29 miles. I was going to do it in 1 day. It also meant that tomorrow I was going to walk 38 miles. And are you kidding me? I'm going to go 29 miles, followed by 38 miles, which would only leave me 7 miles to get into town. So I could get up early, get into town Friday, first thing in the morning, have a full day there, get on a plane Friday night, fly to Paris, Saturday morning, get on a plane, and make it home Saturday in the evening. And I ended up going all in. How did I go all in? Well, I went all in because I changed my plane tickets again. Changed my tickets and said, I'm going to do this. Whatever else happens, I'm flying out of Santiago on Friday. No buffer days, no ifs, ands, or buts. I am flying out, and this is on Tuesday now. So this is Tuesday. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to, oh no, this is Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. So Wednesday, beginning of week 5, I'm walking 29 miles. Thursday, I'm walking 38 miles. Friday, I'm walking into town. I'm going to spend the day there. I'm going to get to the airport. I'm getting on a 6 o'clock flight. Why? Why did I do that? I think the biggest reason was interiorly, I was getting a sense that it's time to go home. And that was matching externally what I, in talking with Kerry, was realizing that the burden on her, like her Camino, her pilgrim journey, was one of supporting me. And that meant she was taking on the burdens of caring for the family and the house and all the complications of what it meant to just run our household and the busy lives that we had. And I could tell that it was really wearing on her. So even as I'm getting worn down on the one hand, but stronger on the other hand, there was a sense of saying, if I can do this for her, that would be a great blessing. And so that was my motivation. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to try to be a superhero, or I'm going to try to go to the extreme or something like that. But it was rather, you know what? If there's any possible way I can support Kerry, it would be by getting home sooner. And that would be a huge gift to her and to the family. And so I made the decision and didn't tell her. I didn't tell anybody in the family. In fact, I only told 2 people. I told the 2 real estate agents that have been helping me with my transactions back home so that they could actually be making plans for some of the different like communication and meetings and things like that we would be having, knowing that I would actually be home on Saturday evening rather than on Tuesday. And so they knew for the sake of planning, but no one else knew. So, okay, now here it is though. Time to go. Let's do this. So I wake up again. It's dark. I know that if I'm going to go 29 miles, that's about 5 miles longer than any other stage that I had taken to this point. I'd gone about 24 miles 4 times in the course of the Camino now, and I knew the impact that it had had on me. It was hard. My feet were swollen, and I was really dragging and exhausted by the end of the day. And now I'm going to go like 20% further than my longest days. And again, this is just a few days since I had dislocated my other ankle, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So got up early, still dark, and started walking the path. And sure enough, here comes everybody. I bumped into a bunch of people, even though it was, again, pitch black out, but it wasn't that early. It was, I think, it was maybe 6:30 when I left. And sure enough, started bumping into, and that was actually quite helpful. And that's going to be one of the themes that shows up here. It's something I mentioned to you. I'm going to mention more fully tomorrow, is the gift of other hikers, even though you're not talking with them, just other people that are on the journey, how supportive they are. So I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow on my 38-mile day. But for today, I'm going to focus in on a couple of other themes, right? So the first is that what I just shared with you is sometimes you might be asked to go beyond what you believe are the limits of what's possible for you. And to do that, you're going to need a source of motivation to be able to go beyond. And for me, that source was Carrie. It was my call as a husband to support and encourage and help her walk her path. And so as a husband, but also then as a father for my kids, because she was carrying the parenting burden essentially by herself, that this was part of my call, that I was willing to do it for her. So it wasn't about me saying, I'm going to achieve this next level goal in my life. Well, this theme ended up appearing in the course of my day. So once again, starting my day with it was probably now 2.5, 3 hours of prayer for my family, praying the rosary peacefully, slowly, just praying until I felt like, okay, I'm done praying for this kid and this mystery. Let me move on to the next one and the next mystery. And again, finding that very beautiful, very powerful. And then after that, I arrived at the first break. I knew that if I was going to walk a more extended day, that I was going to have to be more conservative about taking breaks. So I got to a coffee shop that was like, okay, you know what? Let me just stop. Let me get a quick cup of coffee. I had my day pack with me, so I was just going to eat a little bit of food to give me the energy I needed and take some water in so I stay hydrated and keep moving. And this was another one of those divine appointment moments, because the timing of it all was a matter of seconds, because the timing that it took for me to order the coffee, drink the coffee, have the little bit of food, get myself set, and then to walk out back onto the path. Again, the timing of it all, I get back onto the path just as this young lady is walking down the same path. And so she was walking at a good clip, so really pacing me about the same pace, that if she had arrived there 10 seconds earlier, I would never have caught her. This conversation doesn't happen. If she had arrived there 5 to 10 seconds later, she wouldn't have caught me, and this conversation doesn't happen. So the window of the moment of encounter was that precise, that again, it was just so striking. So this woman, the youngest lady that I met and ended up spending time talking to on the Camino, 21-year-old Canadian young lady. And she was, once again, at this place in her life where she had the window of time. She was on a semester break. And so it was something that she just wanted to do. She wanted the challenge and had discovered it. Like she discovered it on social media as like, this would be really cool. This would be a fun thing to do. I'm going to do it. And so, and I was like, you're 21. Did you feel comfortable like walking this on your own? And she said, well, you know what? It was a little bit scary at first. It was a little bit like, okay, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be safe and all that? But she said over just a matter of the first few days, she realized, you know what, this was going to be safe. But something else happened. And it had to do with doing a hard thing. So here's our theme today, doing a hard thing. So she ended up starting on a version of the Camino that was harder than the Camino Frances, the most popular one. It was the Camino del Norte. So it was a harder trail to follow. And after just a few days of doing that trail, she realized, you know what, this is too much for me. I'm going to reconnect back to the Camino Frances, and I'm going to do that trail instead. And so she did. But after just doing that for a couple of days, she came to the conclusion that this is too much. I'm not going to make it. And she started to look for a plane ticket home. She did more than that. She bought a plane ticket home. And now she needed to take a bus to the airport. And so she got a bus ticket online, and she was basically saying, I'm done. I'm done. This was too much. So she starts walking to the bus station to get on the bus, to get to the airport, go home. And she ends up passing a park. And she said she went and she sat down on a bench in the park, and she just started weeping, just started crying over the fact that she failed, that she started out doing this thing that she had this like enthusiasm for, this energy for. She can handle this. She's got this. And now it was just ending. And she had this moment of reflection. And the word that came up was regret. And she said she was faced with a dual regret. There was two forms of the regret. The first was, I regret coming here. I regret it because it introduced me to challenges that were too much for me. And so I need to go home. I regret that I took on that challenge. And so now I'm going back to a place that's more comfortable and easy for me, a place that will be more like just surrounding me with a sense of I'm safe. But she said then something else emerged in her. And it was this conviction that if she did get on that bus, if she ended up going to that bus station and then getting to the airport and getting on that plane, that there would be another regret that would emerge. And that regret was leaving the Camino. She said, I realized that when I got home, back to that safe place, back to that comfortable place, away from this hard trail, I would regret more leaving the hard path and leaving the Camino, stopping doing this difficult thing. I would regret that more than the regret that I have right now, the regret that I actually ever took it on. And she said that realization in her mind gave her enough of a conviction to stand up, stop her tears, and get back on the trail. And so she canceled her plane ticket, did not go to that bus station, and started back on the Camino. And she ended up like arriving at one of those albergues again, one of those dormitories, and ended up having a very poignant, timely moment of sharing in conversation, where at this particular albergue, it was a monastery setting. And the person from the monastery that was there introduced a time of prayer and then had some sharing about, talk about how your Camino's going, what's going on. So she shared this story. And see, she said she got an immense amount of affirmation and encouragement and support that said, we are so proud of you for making that decision to say, I don't want to regret the path that I took. I don't want to regret not having quit. I'm going to continue on. And people were hugging her, and she just felt such a sense of like relief that she hadn't done it, and a new sense of energy to continue on. Now, a couple of things that were interesting about this. The first was, it didn't make the Camino easier. It was still hard. But she realized that there is this basic dynamic in our lives, and it's the hard easy versus the easy hard. You can choose to do what is hard, and if you choose to do the hard thing, you know what you'll discover? Life will get easier. When you're choosing to do the virtuous thing, it's hard. It's not pleasant, it's not fun, it's not comfortable, it's hard. And acknowledging that. But you do the hard thing, especially the hard thing that's virtuous or godly, or the good thing, life will get easier. But if you choose to leave the hard path, you choose to do what's easy, you're going to discover that life will get harder. When you choose the path that's more easy and comfortable and soft and pleasant, because you want to jump away from, you want to exit from that difficult situation you're in, you just might discover that life's going to get harder for you, because in fact, growing involves doing hard things. St. Thomas Aquinas says, what turns a boy into a man is the bonum arduum. That's Latin, the difficult good, the arduous good. It's the good thing that comes about only as a result of persistence, willingness to sacrifice. It takes a bit of courage. It takes this endurance. It takes a willingness to face the stress and the pressure and the lack of comfort. And you press through and you stay with it. And then the good thing happens. The difficult good. And here she is as a 21-year-old, willing to embrace the difficult good. It's going to lead to a deeper maturity. It's going to lead to a more virtuous life, a life that is more honorable as a human being, and done in the context of faith, a more godly life. And so I share that with you to say that this young lady ended up being a wonderful witness to the hard easy is the path to take. The difficult good is, in fact, the call, the call that we have, right? What's our call? Our call is to pick up our cross and follow the Lord daily, right? If you come and follow me, you should expect a difficult good, a crucifying good, a good that is, in fact, a bit overwhelming. So this also leads to priests. I've mentioned to you along the way that I encountered 3 priests in conversation. The first one, there was, like, again, a lack of real willingness to engage, and I was a little bit disappointed. I had hopes for a better interaction with him and all of that, and then I ended up moving forward, so missed out on any other communication with him, and was really hoping for something more. And I had prayed for him. I had been praying for him for the Lord to bring about blessings in his life. Well, lo and behold, God is a redeeming God. God is a God of second chances. Because as I ended up departing from this woman, this young lady, we got to a city, and she saw a friend of hers, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to take a break and go have lunch." Well, I knew I needed to continue on because I had my 29-mile journey in front of me. So I continued pressing forward. And I ended up coming to, again, a couple of small towns, took another little break, and I said, I just got to keep pushing forward. And it's about now 1:45 in the afternoon. And so I still have a few hours to go in my day, several hours. And I'm walking through this tiny town, and I'm not seeing anybody. And all of a sudden I look ahead, and there's this little like porch area, and there's someone sitting in a chair. He has a hat on, and he's sitting outside of, I come to find out it's another little hostel. And as I'm approaching, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and I'm thinking, he looks familiar. Yes, it's that priest. It's that priest. He takes his hat off. I'm like, "Father, how are you?" And he says, "Hey, Dr. Tom, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Well, do you mind if I sit down?" "Absolutely." And all of a sudden, there's this different sense of communication. There's this sort of enthusiasm and this openness, and we end up having this richer conversation. It just lasted about 10 or 15 minutes, but it had to do with, hey, what's happened, what's transpired on our caminos, on our journeys since we last met. And my first question was, how did you get here? How did you get ahead of me? Like, I knew how many miles I'd been walking, and I'm thinking there's no way he passed me. And sure enough, he had taken a bus to get to this point because he wanted to make it to Sarria by Monday, right? So from there to Sarria, it was going to be 5 days. And so I didn't say anything about my path. Oh, actually, I did. I told him about my path. I was going to get there on Friday. And so beyond that, though, we just had a chance to talk a bit about the encounters we had had. And he was much more like attuned to talking about, we are walking this path as pilgrims, and that this is a journey of faith that is specifically associated with our faith. And I was just really like, that for me, it was so life-giving that we could share at that level. That's what I was hoping for way back when I felt like there was a resistance and a wall and no interest. Now, all of a sudden, there was this sense of great openness and willingness to share and talk. And he lamented the fact that there were so few people walking the Camino who were doing so on the basis of their Catholic faith for Catholic reasons and for the actual traditional historical reasons that people walk the Camino. And so, again, beautiful timing of this whole thing. This wasn't exactly a matter of seconds. This was a matter of minutes, because if I had gotten there about 10 minutes later, I would have missed him. He was only sitting on that porch because they had a 2:00 entry time for the Camino, for the albergue. He wasn't able to go to his room and rest until 2:00. And I ended up passing by about 10 minutes of 2. And so that's why we spoke for that 10 or 15 minutes, and then he was able to access his room. But I'm like, thank you, Lord. And the last thing that ended up happening was that as it was time for him to go in, I said, "Father, would you give me a blessing?" And so I knelt down right there on the porch, and he ended up extending his hands over me, and he prayed just a beautiful, like full, like heartfelt, soulful blessing over me and over my life and over the path I was going to walk. And I was so grateful for that. And I felt that was so fitting, and it was redemptive, because our last moment together, the last interaction between us, was a priestly interaction. That he wasn't there as just this guy. He wasn't just there as, oh, he happens to be a priest who happens to be talking to a Catholic theologian. No, he was functioning as a priest in my regard, and he was ministering a priestly blessing over my life. And that for me was a beautiful way to finish our communication together, with the blessing. But he blessed me, shook hands. I went my way and he went his. So I was very appreciative of that blessing for the journey. When you're facing a difficult path, a cross that you have to carry, a difficult good, it can be easy to want to quit. It can be easy to want to say, I just want to choose, I regret having faced this difficult path, and to choose what's easy or easier. And when we do that, we just might discover that things get harder. There's the alternative, though. Choose the difficult good with the grace of God. Choose the cross with the grace of Christ. Call upon the blessings that the Lord wants to minister to your life through the priesthood, through the sacraments, through the life of prayer. And you know what? You will get what you need to finish the path that is yours to take. Now, he blessed me. I didn't magically get transported 10 miles ahead. I still had to walk that path. It was still a difficult path. It was not easy finishing it off. Those last 5 miles that were longer than any other trip that I had taken were marked by pouring rain. That was not easy or fun. It was difficult. It was a difficult good. But when I got to the end of that journey, when I made it to the hostel that I was staying in, I was so grateful that I had done it. So grateful for that difficult good. And got into my room. I had the food I needed there, so I didn't even have to leave. Set myself up for success. I said, I'm simply going to rest. I'm not going to walk around. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to sit and rest my feet because I know that I'm facing tomorrow the most difficult stage in my journey. And I'll talk to you about that tomorrow. All right.